This is Here's What I Learned, a podcast that explores the lessons found in business and life. I'm your host, Jackie Hayes, a business consultant and strategist, a reader, homesteader, and superhero fan. In this show, I talk with coaches and service providers. We explore the lessons they have learned running an online business, embracing feminist business practices, rejecting hustle culture, and embracing their roles as CEOs. In today's episode, Alexandra Raymond and I are chatting about using systems to save you time and effort in your business. Alexandra has been a finance professional for 10 plus years, and her products and services help solopreneurs and small business owners demystify their company's finances. Let's welcome Alexandra to the show. I am going to start out our conversation here with a quick rapid fire question for you, and that is, what have you been learning about lately?
Ooh, what have I been learning about lately? I have been interested in following a bit more what's going on in the capital markets and how it affects our buying power. This is my latest thing.
Tell me more. Because that just went right over my head as a non-finance person.
Yeah, I have this new interest to follow what's going on, but also kind of be like, okay, but what does this actually mean for buying power? For example, if I tell you, hey, did you know that 2 weeks ago it was earnings week and, all the tech companies dunk, but Apple did well, you're like, what are you talking about? However, if I tell you, hey, if you've been following Apple, you will know that right now they're having issues at their plant in China. Meaning, if you're thinking about buying an iPhone 14 for your nephew, your cousin, or whatnot, they will most probably be delayed. So if you're thinking of getting an iPhone 14 for Christmas, you should be thinking about buying it right now because there's most probably going to be a 3 to 4 week delay in actually consumers being able to receive it. So it's kind of like this interest in okay, there's kind of like all the noise with all the jargon going on, but okay, but what does this actually mean for me as a consumer? Yeah.
No, that makes sense. I mean, you hear about all of those things, but you don't realize and putting two and two together if oh, wait a minute, there's problems in a plant. And that means, it's going to be a delay. And I think sadly, all of us are just now used to everything being a delay because of all of the shortages. But yeah, it's okay, it'll be delayed probably even more than it probably already was. So.
Right. And the timeliness of following this kind of piece of news and information is super important, right? You're thinking, oh yeah, they'll go on strike, there will be delays, but every year around Christmas time and around Thanksgiving is when a lot of people are buying things. And if a lot of people are buying things and things cannot get to their final destinations, whatever it is you're thinking of, purchasing during, Black Friday, because you hope that it will get there by Christmas, it might not happen.
Yeah, it may not happen. It may not happen. This is one of those reasons why I, years and years ago, when online shopping was not as big of a thing, I made the deal with myself that by December 1st, all my holiday shopping would be done because I did not want to set foot into a mall after that. And then online shopping happened and I started to get lax. And then, with COVID hitting, it was oh no, we're back to I have to buy it at the beginning of November if I want to make sure it shows up in time.
Yeah. And another thing that, people should, what we're talking about, connecting two and two together, take a company, hate it or love it, Amazon. What Amazon did is that they had their Prime Day in October. They were let's have our Prime Day a bit before so that all those consumers who are looking for special deals, specifically on electronics or things that are quite expensive usually, they pushed their Prime Day in October so that the buying rush happens a bit earlier. So if you're someone that's just like you, is a bit more organized, you could be oh, I can buy everything in October, be ready, and don't have to struggle or do all the last minute thinking in December, because companies are changing the way that they put things on special, and more and more companies are having what we call pre-Black Friday sales, where they have had Black Friday sales in October, early November, which is the time that we're speaking right now. So Yeah,
Yeah.
putting two and two together when listening to what's going on in the news and the financial markets and in the economy.
Yep, yep. I just laugh because I have so many people in my life who wait until like the day before Christmas or 2 days before Christmas through they're like running out, and I'm like, you're not gonna find anything. You're not gonna find anything. I know that
Yeah,
the stores are open, but you got slim pickings. So
they could always get gift cards.
exactly, exactly. And my son, he hates because my parents and I will be like asking in October what he wants, and he's now almost 21, so he basically just wants money and gift cards, anyways. But he
Yeah.
would get so frustrated with like, I don't know in October what I want, and it used to be easy. It used to just be whatever Legos, But now at 21, it's like I know I can just hand you a gift card, but that's not as much fun. So,
Yeah.
he's back to Legos, strangely enough. Now he wants the really
No.
expensive Legos. So
Yeah.
we were talking, you mentioned, if you're planning and in advance, you can take advantage of some of these things. You and I are both kind of a systems group of people, planning type of people. We both come from the Done in the Day program. I know that you really like to talk about systems. What is it about
Yes.
systems that you love so much?
I love systems because they remove a lot of the headaches that we have when it comes to managing repetitive, boring, complicated tasks. I think that when it comes to systems, there are some areas of our lives where we're like, oh, we've already adopted systems. For example, Jackie, if I have your phone number and I want to call you, I can literally just pull up my phone, type Jackie, and I could call you. But this is a system allowing me to call you in a very efficient way. If I didn't have a smartphone, I would have to go, I'm going to age myself, but I would have to go in, either in my Rolodex or my little book of contacts, flip the pages all the way to J, find your number, and then start dialing it. So when it comes to like something as, simple as communication, calling someone, we've already adopted systems and technology to make things faster and more efficient in our lives. And that's what I'm trying to kind of like explain to people in terms of we could do the same thing for finances. There are ways to kind of like lean on technology and lean on systems to make these tasks efficient, quicker, so that you don't have the headache of like, oh my God, I actually like have to do this very long and like boring thing. Yeah.
I think one of the things that I hear the most from my clients is, and especially back in the days when I was a VA, they're like, can you just clean up my QuickBooks? It's a mess. I haven't invoiced people in ages, or I haven't, reconciled anything in ages. It's just a mess and it just becomes bigger and bigger and bigger a mess. And the longer they wait, the bigger a mess it is, the more overwhelmed, and they would avoid it. And I'm like, I'm not a QuickBooks person, not a finance person. You're going to have to find somebody else to help you with that. So tell me about what it's like as somebody who has that mess, let's say, and needs help. What would you do from like step number one to now they have a system in place and it's painless and they barely have to think about it?
Yeah, so the way that I like to think about it is kind of like in three big steps, right? You need to sit down and configure a lot of things. You need to figure out automations, and then you need to maintain the work. So when I say configure, right? For example, if someone was to come to me and go like, "Hey, I need help. What do we do? Where do we get started?" Step one, it's like, all right, where's all your financial information? Let's organize it and configure it properly in QuickBooks from the start. I am a big fan of starting from a clean slate so that you can kind of like configure everything properly, have your chart of accounts set up properly, have your report set up properly. So step one is really where are all the numbers for your business? Let's configure them in a system. Step two, I then look at the basic configuration and go like, what are some automations that we can kind of like plug into your QuickBooks to make your life easier? For example, what's a cool task management tool that we can plug to your QuickBooks where all you have to do is forward your invoice to an email or like take a picture with an app so that you don't have to sit there and like manually enter information or whatnot. What are ways to like easily automate the data entry to QuickBooks? So that's step two. And then step three is maintain. And when I talk about maintain, it's kind of like two things. First is education and training in terms of like, hey, now that everything is clean, we've set up your automation. Let me give you kind of like a quick, 101 training on what truly matters for you as an entrepreneur when you're looking at your QuickBooks. And then part two of maintain is how do you very quickly, maybe like once a week, once every 2 weeks, look at your books, do those very simple tasks, spend like 30 minutes at most so that you don't accumulate, all the maintenance at the end of the year. How do you kind of like log in once a week, go boom, 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 everything's in order, and then we can move forward. Um, and then yeah, you kind of like step three and beyond is just making sure to keep the good habit of looking at your books consistently, um, whether weekly, biweekly, if that at the end of the year everything's in order and we're all good.
So let's say you're somebody new in business and you're like, "Oh, I've been doing fine with my spreadsheet, my Excel spreadsheet or my Google sheet." What would you
Yeah.
say is the what would you say to somebody who is in that position? And you're somebody who helps with QuickBooks. I'm assuming that you would be like, "Oh, you really should move over to QuickBooks." What would be the benefit in that?
The benefit in that is it you have no idea how much it costs to be tracking things in a spreadsheet. And for two reasons. The first reason is you're tracking it in a spreadsheet. However, when time comes to do your taxes and you're like, hey, I need a CPA to help me out, your CPA will charge you to sort out everything that you've been, plugging into your Excel. Your CPA will charge you to sort out the information and and obtain the information that they need in order to produce your taxes. So at the end of the day, yeah, you're like, oh, I'm doing a good job in my Google Sheet or whatnot. But when comes tax season at the end of the year, your numbers need to be like completely reorganized in a way that makes sense for you to do your reporting. Whereas if you take the good habit of maintaining your numbers in a system like QuickBooks or any other system, at the end of the year, everything's in order. You could just go to the proper report and all your numbers will be there. So it saves you time and money to have those numbers already in a system where they are ready for reporting. And then the second things I like to say is, let's hypothetically say that I work for a bank and I'm like, hey, Jackie, I really like what you do and I'd like to offer you a grant. However, I would really need to like see your P&L or your balance sheet or look at your company's numbers. If your numbers are already in QuickBooks, you can go like, sure, I'll send this to you, by end of day or by end of next week, because you can easily go into QuickBooks and produce the reports that are necessary for you to get this grant or this loan from a bank or whatnot. If your numbers are in a spreadsheet, you are going to be like scrambling of how do I do this? How do I put those numbers together? I need to hire someone to help me. And it becomes very difficult to get a snapshot picture of the financial health of your business for potential opportunities. And then I know I said two, but a third thing that came to mind is what happens if by accident lose access to this file? If you by accident erase a number, erase a sheet, make a mistake in a formula that messes up your whole file, there's no backup. You've made a mistake in this, manual heavy process and you cannot go back. Versus if something's in a system, everything's in the cloud, everything is somewhere, and you can recuperate that information and actually kind of like fix this, human mistake that you made. So yeah, those are kind of like the three things that come to mind.
How have you adopted systems into your business?
Well, I have to say that my background's in finance. I practiced as a CPA for about 7 years, then transitioned to the world of tech. So I already knew that from the get-go, I wanted to track my numbers. So the first thing I did when I thought about, hey, I want to start a business. I want to start charging people for my services. First thing I did was call a lawyer, and I was like, hey, how do we set this up legally, in a way that like I will not be in trouble? And the second thing that I did was open up a business bank account because I was like, I need to make sure that my, personal finance and my business's finance are two separate things, and I don't need to like go through my things to try to make sense of my numbers. Once I had my business bank account, then I got a QuickBooks account going because I was like, I might be small right now, but I need to start tracking those numbers, and just making sure that I have this, ABC foundational work in place from the beginning so that, let's hypothetically say that, yeah, everything booms. I'm not stuck looking for professionals, looking for a bookkeeper, looking for an accountant to do like a QuickBooks cleanup or to help me clean up all these things that I've already set up from the beginning. Yeah.
Do you use systems in other areas of your business besides finances?
So let's see. When it comes to systems, I use QuickBooks for finances. I use Dubsado as a CRM tool. I use Airtable as I like to call it my electronic or like cloud-based Rolodex, just to keep track of who I'm speaking with and just follow up and gather that information somewhere. WordPress for my website, just so that if one day I want to optimize, the SEO or whatnot, at least I'm using a tool that will allow me to do this. Calendly to schedule coffee chats. So Calendly allows you to find time on my calendar to schedule conversations. And then the whole Gmail suite with, Google Gmail and Google Folder and Google everything. So yeah, those are the systems that I use for my business.
One of the things that I think I probably should have asked at the top of this, but
Yeah.
um, I hear people who will say systems when they really mean process, or they'll say process when they really mean system. So, do you want to talk about what the difference is between those
Huh.
two?
That's a very, to me, this is a linguistics question. Um, Because in my world, when you're talking about a system, I'm automatically thinking um, automation
hmm
and that type of system. But you're right that system can also mean what system do I have in place overall to make sure that I get things done. Um, I think that the when it comes to like how we use those terms interchangeably, as a new business owner, what I would say is that when somebody talks about systems, you should be thinking about leveraging technology to make your life easier. And when you think about, the way that you organize your workflow, that you organize how things get done, you should be talking about more about operations
hmm
and SOPs and things like that, and really make the distinction of looking at the operations. What do I need in place to help me get ish done?
hmm
And then systems in terms of like, all right, now that I know everything that needs to be done, how do I leverage technology to work more efficiently?
Yeah, that's how I see it. I see process as the step by step means of getting to from A to B. And then
Hmm.
systems come into play as to how the tools and automations, etc., for how that process is going to be completed. So I think we're kind of on the same board on that. Is there anything that you would want to make sure that the audience knew about adopting systems, especially when it comes to finances, that we haven't already covered?
The one thing is finance, the just the topic of finance is very intimidating. However, there are a lot of finance professionals out there who are trying to make, whose work and kind of like mission is to make this information digestible and relatable, specifically for, women entrepreneurs, right? I think that, a couple of years ago, finances were this thing that only bros talked about, and it was very difficult to understand because they would use a lot of jargon. But more and more, there are financial professionals out there who are making the information accessible and digestible for people just starting out in business. And so, yeah, it takes a little bit of, looking around on the internet, but you can definitely find someone who speaks a language that you can understand to help you out. For example, there's this amazing woman called Luisa Alberto, and she has a company called People First Finance. And the whole goal of People First Finance is to make financial information very digestible. And I think that her target demographic is women, and particularly women of color. And the way that she explains, how you should be tracking your numbers, what you should be kind of like focusing on when it comes to your business, she kind of like breaks down the steps in such easy ways to understand. And I know that she's not the only one doing the work, right? There are a lot of people out there. I don't know if your thing is like, hey, I don't know, I'm a man, and I don't know, I'm a man from Florida, and I have a certain way of communicating that is my preference. I'm pretty sure that if go online and look for financial professionals, you can find someone who you can relate to in terms of like, how do I like to communicate? What are words that relate to me? And I would just want to let the audience know that there are more and more professionals out there that you can find that speak your language, that can explain things to you in a way that you will be able to understand, so that you're not intimidated by getting educated when it comes to your finances and your company's finances.
I mentioned at the top of this conversation that you and I both have done the Done in a Day program. That's how we know each other. And so can you tell the audience about your VIP day offer?
Yes, so my VIP day is called QuickBooks in a Day. And the reason why it's called QuickBooks in a Day is because I do the heavy lifting of configuring your QuickBooks, importing all your financial data, and recommending other automations that you should be using along with QuickBooks. So I take care of this. I do all this in the back end. And then during the VIP day, it's a half day of training in terms of like, hey, as an entrepreneur, this is how you should be looking at your QuickBooks, and also training on how you should maintain your books now that I set up everything properly. And then after the VIP day, clients have access to me for 30 days, because I know that during the VIP day, there's a lot of information that I share, and maybe you didn't understand it, part of it or whatnot. So for 30 days, you have access to book additional time with me to walk you through some of the things that we talked about. So QuickBooks in a Day.
How can the audience find you?
Everything that has to do with trackmymoney.co. So my website is www.trackmymoney.co. And if you want to connect with me there's a button on the webpage called Let's Talk. My Instagram handle is at trackmymoney.co. And if you would like to connect, you can send me a DM there as well. And my email address, info@trackmymoney.co.
Well, thank you so much for being here today.
Yeah, thank you so much for the invitation. It's been great.
Thank you for joining us for another episode of Here's What I Learned. If you enjoyed this episode, please be sure to follow and leave a review. Remember, there's always something new to learn. Stay curious and never stop asking questions.